Art House Contemporary is an international auction house that specializes in modern and contemporary art from West Africa. Art House Contemporary aims to create awareness of the scope of contemporary art in the region and also in Africa. Its aim is to encourage international recognition towards its talented artists and strengthen the economy of the arts market.
So the first auction was an amazing success. We were so excited. We sold 95%, which is huge. And we had a record broken where our most famous artist, Bruce Onabrakpaya, one of our most famous artists, actually sold a work which was valued at about 3 million, and he sold it for 9 million. And he jumped up in amazement because there were 3 people bidding in the room. And when I went to give his check, he said, "Gosh, that's too much. I want to give you half of it because how are we going to sustain this? You have to sustain this." And I said, "Don't worry about it. I'm able to sustain. You get your 90% because I took his 10% off." And he was so excited. And it changed the map. All of a sudden, artists could earn a decent living off their art rather than having art as a secondary thing and having to work elsewhere. And they were able to express in how they wanted to, not how a collector expressed. The other thing we also did was create a secondary market. There was no, once you bought a work of art, you didn't know what the price was. There was no, there were 1 or 2 galleries. If you went to them, you wouldn't get the right figure anyway. And what it did was actually make people aware that they could now sell their works. There was a platform to sell works which before there never was.
The Art House Contemporary success story has metamorphosed into the Art House Foundation, a non-profit organization that aims to encourage the creative development of contemporary art in Nigeria. Through a residency-based program, the Art House Foundation provides a platform for artists to expand their practice and experiment with new art forms and ideas.
I'm a visual artist, although I was trained as a sculptor, but I've been doing more of painting since I left school about 15 years ago. This is my first time of using this fabric collage on canvas, so I'm just trying to see what I'll be able to do in less than 2 hours, and see it's a new process. So that's what I'm doing right now. As you can see, it is coming out not so badly. So this is actually my first time of trying to work in the public, and I think I'm enjoying the vibes. I think I'm enjoying the whole thing because to me, studio is more like a sacred place to me. Studio is, even when I'm not working, just a place where I can relax and think about my work, gaze at my work, communicate with my work. But painting in a public space like this is quite a new experience to me, and I think so far I'm enjoying it. I must say at this juncture, a very big congratulations to Art House for having been a very powerful platform, not just in Nigeria but in Africa as a whole. Apart from being featured in their auction, I've been sponsored by Art House to do a 2-month residency program in Madrid last year.
By establishing a network that supports cross-cultural exchange between Nigerian and international artists, the Art House Foundation embraces contemporary art as an educational model to engage communities, promote social dialogue, and advance the critical discourse of artistic practices.
This artist here is Simon Okeke. He was one of the Zaria rebels. They were called the Zaria rebels because they were taught how to paint in the European manner, but then they wanted to paint subjects that were of African origin rather than just portraiture. So they rebelled and started this group. And he unfortunately died in 1960. So it's very rare to come across these works because he died just before the Biafran War ended. And he was from the East, so I think he died a month before it ended. And so we lost a really great artist.
I think the art scene in Nigeria is fantastic at the moment. It's evolved a lot in the past 10 years. There are many new artists coming, up and coming, that are really, really talented. So I come, I look, not in a snobbish way to go for the people whose names we already know, but I love looking out for new artists coming up who have talent. When I buy not necessarily because of as an investment, but to enjoy the art.
So I'm here to celebrate 10 years of Art House Nigeria auctions. I think that they really helped to put Nigerian art on the map, especially the contemporary art scene, which is really what I think is extremely compelling about the art scene right now in Nigeria. The modern work is obviously high priced, very well priced, but highly prized work. But I think that there's a lot of opportunity for people to get into the arts by collecting some contemporary artworks.
Artists like Nollywood here, they are well known all over the world. So another of Nigerian artists, but the one who is well known is work David Dale, Onobrapaye, and all the young artists. They've done very well. Kabisa is one of those people who has actually promoted their works and made them known internationally.
This is a Nainyamu. It's one of the most famous, iconic works that Nigeria has to offer the world. It was presented to the UN, and there's one outside the National Museum in Lagos. He worked prolifically over a span of about 50 years, died in 1994. He's our most famous modern artist. His name is Ben Nwanwu, and he did 3 sizes of this. He did the small size, the medium, and the large. And this one is one of the finest I've seen. It's a golden bronze. It's very beautiful. Some of them have reptile kind of features. This one is one of the clearest. The Queen has one in her collection. And whoever is going to be the lucky one to have it in their collection after this auction.
It's the 10th anniversary of Art House Contemporary. Art House blazed the trail 10 years ago to introduce art auction into the Nigerian market, and I think they need to be commended for this. What they have done is to help to create a secondary market for artworks, and therefore helping to discover prizes for artworks, and also to encourage both art collectors and producers of artworks to go on producing.
Obviously, the history of art in Nigeria goes back generations, but I think that it's great to focus on the reason why we're here this evening, which is primarily the 10-year anniversary of Art House Contemporary. A lot of people don't know this, but 10 years ago, how I sort of was more formally initiated into the art world was actually the moment when Kavita Chalaram decided she was setting up this auction house. And so, in fact, I remember her very first auction, sitting with her daughter, her son, calling collectors, telling them about what she was trying to do. And for me, it was a very important moment for Nigerian art. It was a very educational moment for me. And I would simply just like to say a huge congratulations to them for making it over the last 10 years and growing from strength to strength with the multiple auctions that they now have. It's such a significant institution.
Well, Art House is now in their 10th year. And I think what's been fantastic about what they've done is they brought so much awareness to the art scene in Nigeria. They brought so much education actually to people like myself. I've always been interested in art, and in Nigeria it was very difficult to find access to places where you could buy art or learn about art. But through the Art House auction sales, it's been very educational, learning about all the different artists, learning about the different styles, learning about even the value of art, and they brought.
I worked in the London auction business for some 25 to 30 years, before actually becoming a private art dealer about 15 to 20 years ago. Mrs. Chalaram got in touch with me some 10 years ago when she was setting up Art House Contemporary in order to take the auctions for her, because it's a process that one learns over years. One has to be fairly experienced at it. Art House Contemporary, as I said, was set up about 10 years ago, and ever since then they have been having 2 major sales a year of West African contemporary art, so Nigerian and Ghanaian mainly. What we've seen over the last 10 years is an exponential growth in the Nigerian art market and the Ghanaian art market. The great thing about it is that the art market has not just remained here in Nigeria, but has, if you like, followed the diaspora, the Nigerian diaspora. So there are now collectors in America, there are collectors in Europe, a lot of collectors in England as well. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there's a large collecting base here, obviously, for Nigerian and Ghanaian and other West African art. I would say that the increase in values of objects that I've seen over the last 10 years being sold here in Ghana has been anything up to 10, or in certain circumstances up to 20 times what we were selling them for 10 years ago. So the investment potential in West African art has been huge and still is huge. The other important thing about Art House Contemporary here is that they have set up an art foundation, and it's slightly separate from the auction business, it's separate from the selling business. However, what it does is nurture young artists. So it's not just a reliance on traditional and well-known artists from maybe the 50s to the 80s, but Mrs. Jalaram is now nurturing new artists with her program at the Art Foundation, at the Art Contemporary Foundation. So it's a two-prong attack. It's creating an art market here, while also it's being created in London, America, but also nurturing new and up-and-coming artists. The West African market has grown exponentially in the last 10 years. Interestingly, it's beginning to take over from the Indian marketplace, which grew hugely in the 80s and 90s, but has now leveled off. And the African market is picking up to where the Indian marketplace was. And bear in mind also, it's Africa in total, it's not just West Africa. South Africa has always had a fairly strong marketplace. And also now there's a new auction house in Kenya, I'm told. And up in the north, Morocco and Algeria and Tunisia has a burgeoning artist community. So Africa is, I think, one of the new things in the art marketplace, without a doubt.
It's Peju Alatishe. We just had a show of hers last month, which is a bounding success. She was one of our artists at the Venice Biennale. We had 2, Peju and Victor Ekemino. They represented Nigeria for the first time in Venice last year. And it was such an amazing work that we put it on the cover. She's just truly exceptional female artist that we have in this country today. So this is another female artist. She lives in the UK. She's been working for a long time. She does big metal works. She really is incredible. She represents Nigeria to the rest of the world. And we've always put her into auction every time. And here, being a female organization, we try and promote women as much as we can here.
One of the most striking things about art is how it strikes you in its reality, unapologetically. And this right here stopped me in my tracks. I absolutely love it. It's beautiful. I love the necks of the women. I love the eyes. I love how it embraces African culture and the beauty that is in an African woman's image.
Been following Nigerian art for the past 20 years. Been in Nigeria for over 30 years, but most closely following the arts in the past 20 years. I think there are quite a few interesting works in this auction, especially some works that are of, I could say, some significance, some historical and artistic significance. It's not only works by young artists, but works by older artists. There is a work by Simon Okeke I like very much, works by Ngwongu. It's a great opportunity to see really interesting works.
So this is the first time we've had this artist. She's actually of Indian origin. She's living in the country at the moment. She's painting and she asked whether we would have a look at her works. And we looked, we loved it, and we put it into the auction. Her name is Reha Shishodia. This is Abiodun Olaku. He's known for his street scenes and for his water scenes. This is an older work that he did in the 90s. This is more what he's doing right now. And he has a huge following of Nigerian collectors that absolutely adore his works.
We've been following Nigerian art since the days of Buramio and David Dale. Now, of course, it's a different story because now all the upcoming Nigerian artists are really doing very well and the style has changed so much. So it's good to follow this. It's good to see Nigerian art being appreciated very much. Modern Nigerian art being appreciated by the whole world.
Art House started in Nigeria on a level of professionalism. And one of the things that we can look back and say we have brought to the Nigerian art community or art market is the ability to give value to art, not only monetarily, but also in appreciation. Also, what we've been able to do is to give the artist a sense of worth, value, and recognition. We know that auctions around the world are done with collectors. But what Art House does is to seek artists themselves and invite them to submit their works from the studio for auction. What does that mean? It means that the artist is able to get direct benefit for the work he or she has produced and also get value for it. It encourages art practice and it encourages a certain level of, if I would like to use the word, innovative synergy between the collector, the auction house, and connoisseurs. So, but there are challenges, of course. For example, people have asked me and say, okay, you consult for Art House. What is the relationship between the auctioning of a work and the price of a work that is auctioned and the price of the work that is exhibited by the same artist? I say, well, an auction is an auction where people bid. An exhibition, of course, you bid by tagging as the first person to tag. And there's no contestation about who gets the work first. Another thing that I think we need to make as a point in this 10th anniversary is that beyond auctioning and selling works and building art appreciation, art buying and selling, Art House has a foundation. And the foundation encourages, supports, and sponsors artists and the production of art and the expansion of artistic experience of artists. In my little exposure, I'm yet to know of an auction house that gives as much as Art House does. So these 10 years, let's try to wrap what we've done so far without being honest, without being too humble about it. I think that Art House has succeeded in galvanizing the development of contemporary modern art in Nigeria, in the sense that we have put Nigeria not only in the economic market of this country, but we have put Nigeria across the globe. And collectors now have seen value in what they have invested their money on. Artists are encouraged to live off their art, and there are several other bodies or individuals, organizations and groups who have benefited in that. And so there's a sense in which revenue is added, tourism is galvanized, and the critical art discourse has been put on the proper path.
Without Kavita's vision, passion, and dedication to all forms of art, we will not be here celebrating this success story today. This 10th anniversary features classic pieces by masters Ben Enwonwu, Bruce Onobrakpeya. Also on display are works by Lemi Garioku, Gerald Chukwuma, Chike Obiago, Peju Alatishe, Kenny Adewuyi, Ablide Glover, Obi Enkwenchi, Amos Odion, some of easily the sub-region's most celebrated producers of exotic art forms. We say, Happy 10th Anniversary Art House Contemporary, Lagos, Nigeria.